Yeah, so my name is Emily Majors. I am originally from Southeast Texas. I did my undergrad at Texas A&M University, where I got a Bachelor of Environmental Design, which is a pre-professional degree in architecture. So I was looking to apply to MArch programs as a professional degree path so that I could go for licensure. So I am currently at the Harvard Graduate School of Design in the MArch 1 program and my last year. So I'm completing thesis right now, and I'll be graduating in like 2 months. So yeah, and that's me. And when I was applying to schools, I applied to 5 and I got into 5. And those schools were the GSD, Yale, Columbia, GSAP, UPenn, and SciArc. I made the choice for grad school application to actually put my table of contents on the front as a strategy to fight the low page count limit. So that's what's going on here, just kind of table of contents saying what semester it was completed in, all of this work is academic, and maybe some like headlines. So that way you can just jump right in when you get in. So I started out with this project that I had done in my sophomore year of academic school. And I kind of have a format that's not, it kind of breaks a little. It's not super strict, but I try to start out with some kind of diagrammatic idea or like conceptual idea of the project before jumping in. So yeah, this was also a group project. So I wrote who I collaborated with, and then also what my personal contribution was to the project, which was like the form development, composition, the final drawings, and kind of the post-processing for the images. Whereas like my partner was the one running the renders, I was the one photoshopping them. So yeah, I think some schools ask for that explicitly, but I think it's a good thing to include generally to acknowledge how you work in teams. Especially at the GSD, there is a lot of teamwork. And so I think that is something they look for here. Yeah, and so in this project, yeah, got some wacky little elevations here and some renders. There was a lot of iterations because this was a project that utilized scripting. So it's kind of just pumping out a lot of objects. So I kind of like create a little border with these objects to show that iterative process. And then some quote drawings, site plan, and kind of the typical plan. Yeah, more diagrams and then a model. My undergraduate program did not have a huge model focus like I know other schools had. So I was actually really nervous applying to GSD because there's a strong model making culture here. So I was really pulling at every model I could find that I had made. So this is a 3D print one was included. And then a full spread kind of showing the site axon. Second project, this was also a sophomore year project, so my second year in undergrad. So again, I start with like a conceptual idea of, we analyzed some canonical houses in LA and also analyzed some Issey Miyake dresses. And then those two things started to kind of inform a departure point for the project. It was early undergraduate, like conceptual work. So start with that, and then an array of drawings for the project. Maybe one project, and then some little Maya objects. Yeah. And this project, again, was a group project with my project partner. And I, again, listed out what I did. So this is a fourth year project, my undergrad, the integrated studio, in which we are asked to look at buildings in the context of their systems and structural performance. So yeah, kind of a Bjarke style diagram here, and then jumping right into some of the imagery for the project, just showing maybe, yeah, trying to show a mix of like drawing skills, concept diagram skills, rendering skills throughout the portfolio. And this page is a little crazy. I think I was really, when I made this portfolio, I was really trying to cram as much of the work I'd done as possible. I think if I was going to redo this slide, I might cut one of these columns, but that's neither here nor there. So more renders, little assembly diagram, and then an assembly section. And then another section and the plans for the project. I like to draw plans. It's like my favorite thing. So it's always hard when I'm doing projects to choose which one to show because you're not supposed to show all of them. But one of the ways that I get through this is I choose my favorite to make big, and then I make the rest of them small, just to show that I did draw through all the plans for the project, but only really zooming in on one. And then another full spread to kind of break it up of like chunk of this project, which was a space junk museum. We got to choose our own program. And this is another one. This is like a concept called the naked ooze because it's like an inverse of the volumes of the project, which is also very speculative. I was trying to make droopy objects using grasshopper. So that was just the main point of the project. And again, a tiny model because I didn't really make very many models, and using that same motif of iterations. These are all like plans produced by grasshopper, kind of going around. And I made the decision based on talking to a mentor. They were like, oh, include a little screen clip of the grasshopper script because it's not clear that this was made in grasshopper. So I did that. And then, yeah, this one kind of breaks the mold because I didn't have any like concept diagrams to show. This was my study abroad project, which again was a group project. And so this was in Barcelona, the Barcelona Architecture Center. And so again, just trying to show a mix of sections, renders, little detail drawings, and zoom in of the plan. Yeah. And then this is a spread because we weren't making very many models at school, but we did have a pretty robust fabrication program. And so I got to participate in a lot of like kind of one-off projects, whether it was casting like plaster tessellations or working on these 3D tessellations, trying to cast a hollow rockite object. So I used this like green foam that then dissolved. So that's why there's like all this green, which I really love. And then this group installation at the school of like a tensegrity snake thing that I think is still up because they just didn't feel like taking it down. And then as like extra in the portfolio, I included some photography. I think depending on what school I applied to, I kind of swapped this wildcard page out. So this was some photography I did for a like Italian architecture history class. And I was really interested in these like, I'm going to say the word wrong probably, but the like Caravaggio, chiaroscuro kind of, I don't know. Anyways, effect that we kind of see, and just trying to recreate that in some photography. But I think for other schools, I may have traded this slide out for some professional work. I had worked with a professor that taught at Yale, and so I'm like dropped some of the work I did with him when I applied to Yale. I had like some different, I was interested in photography in my undergrad, so I just like, I could choose. So for each school, I kind of swapped out different photography sets. But this one was interesting because it was also tied with an academic project. Yeah, and then I end with my resume, a little blurb about what these kind of projects are. They're all academic, but I'm hoping that they can continue being like explored in a professional sense. And then I list out skills, honors awards. Yeah. But yeah.
Did you think about including sort of employment work, that kind of thing, from sort of practice,
Yeah.
if you did any?
Yeah, I hadn't had too much employment experience at this point. I went straight from undergrad into graduate school.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
because I was really anxious to start working on like licensure, and so I went straight in. So the only, when I did these jobs, it was like this was pretty It was from my hometown, which is a small town in Texas. So it was pretty pragmatic architecture stuff. So it wasn't interesting to include.
Okay.
This was like, I was working as a startup or as a research assistant for a startup in Austin, Texas. It was like a product design thing. So yeah, I didn't include that. And then, yeah, I was saying I worked for Mark Gage, who teaches at Yale. And so I did include that in my Yale portfolio, but I don't know. I didn't want to include it in my other one.
Did you do any written work, like supplemental essays for your application for the GSD?
Yes. So
Did
most schools
the portfolio?
Did they what? Sorry.
I was just going to say, did they link to the portfolio work that you did? Like, was it a kind of consolidated thing?
The GSD essays, no, because the GSD essays were different. Most schools ask for a general statement of interest, and I had like a formula for that where I was like, this is what I've been interested in, and that way I kind of reference some of the work I've been doing. This is why I want to go to this school. This is like the specific professors or courses I'm interested in engaging with. So general statements of interest, I was able to link to portfolio, but for GSD, they usually do 3 essay prompts. And they don't necessarily have to do with your work.
And how have you found the GSD? How have you
I really like the GSD. I like what I've been able to get from here. What I like about it is a really big school. There's like 5 programs now. They've added a new one, the Masters in Design Engineering, Masters of Architecture, Landscape, Urban Planning, and Urban Design. And so that gets you a population of about 1,000 students. And so like what, oh, and then there's MDes. I can't do the MDes erasure. Yeah, so 6. And so, yeah, what I like about the GSD is the community of students, which come from all over the world, bring a diverse set of references, backgrounds, and skills. And like, I always tell people, I'm like, anything you want to do with the GSD, you can find an expert on it in the building. And so I've just found that to be really enriching. And it also seems like there's a lot of circulation of like guest lecturers and professors. And so you're constantly exposed to new things, which I really like about the GSD.
Would you have made any changes if you did it again?
I mean, opening up this portfolio for this review, there's like so much just graphical things I think are bad. So I don't think anybody should look at this and be like, "Ooh, I have to copy this," like, you know. But besides that, I think when I started at GSD, I was a little bit overwhelmed by my classmates and coming straight from undergrad, I think I was a minority in that way. And most people had years of work experience under their belt at like amazing places. Like I started grad school straight from undergrad and people are like, oh, I've been at OMA for 3 years. I've been at like Zaha. And I'm like, okay, this is crazy. So I think that a lot of people might feel pressured to go straight to graduate school. I don't know if it's the same. I felt that a lot in the US, especially in the South, like pressure to go straight in. But I think it's okay to take time off because I feel like I got burnt out by my 3rd year at the GSD pretty intensely because of going straight through. And I think I also noticed with some of my classmates that are that had that time in between, they seemed way more focused when they came to GSD. They knew exactly what they wanted, and they kind of just like stayed on that path. So I would encourage time off. I'd wish I'd taken some. So.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Long story long.
That's, I mean, yeah, that it can be intimidating. I know what you mean. All those different backgrounds. Thank you so much.